Groupon makes a change at the top. The board has ousted CEO and co-founder Andrew Mason a day after the Daily Deals site reported disappointing earnings and saw its stock plunge 24%. Mason will be replaced on an interim basis by co-founder Eric Lukowski and former AOL executive and Washington Wizards and Capitals owner Ted Leonsis. Leonsis sits on Groupon's board. Groupon was once the fastest growing internet company, but has struggled over the past year amid competition from other daily deal sites like Living Social, as well as Amazon and Facebook. An online scrapbook Pinterest is rolling out new tools today to show companies the number of users it delivers to their websites as part of the popular site's efforts to build a foundation for the launch of money-making features. Retailers such as The Gap, Patagonia, and Dell are increasingly using Pinterest to promote their products. Pinterest, which launched in 2009, is one of the fastest growing websites, guys, with roughly 30 million active users in the U.S. Anheuser-Busch is fighting back. The brewing giant has taken out a full-page ad in several papers defending itself against claims it's watering down its beer. Consumers have filed a class action lawsuit alleging the company is mislabeling the alcohol content of Budweiser, Bud Light, Michelob, and other brands. The ad features a can of drinking water with the caption, "They must have tested one of these." Anheuser-Busch donates water to the American Red Cross and other relief organizations. And drivers are getting a little relief at the pump. The government says retail gas prices fell more than 2 cents in the past week to an average $3.75 a gallon. Now, that's the first decline since mid-December. The drop is due to lower oil prices, which dipped as investors brace for the fiscal impact of the budget cuts. And D.C. gas prices are averaging $3.98 a gallon. And guys, they're lower in Maryland at $3.72 and even lower in Virginia at $3.64. I think that's where I would go.
You're right. It's a good move. Thank you, Shartia. Appreciate it.
And it took only 5.5 years, but Americans have finally regained the $16 trillion of household wealth they lost to the Great Recession. The Federal Reserve says the gains, mostly from higher stock prices, has been flowing mainly to the wealthy, but the middle class has benefited as well from the steady increase in home values, and that's prompted people to spend more on improvements such as painting or landscaping. Consumer spending accounts for about 70% of the U.S. economy.
Shartia Brantley wrote about this for thegrio.com, and Shartia joins me now to talk about this. So what did you discover as you were doing the research for this piece, especially when we focus in on African Americans in the 1%?
I was stunned. African Americans account for 13.6% of the U.S. population. So going into the analysis, I assumed that we would be a much larger percentage of the 1%. And turns out 1.4% of the 1% are African Americans. 96% are Caucasians.
When we look at the research itself, what sort of disparities do you see in terms of household incomes, especially when we talk about the 1%? I mean, it's hard to feel sorry for the 1%, but when you do the numbers and you look at the hard math, what are the income disparities in that top bracket?
Within the 1%, African Americans make about 22% less than Caucasians, and I'm using them as a comparison point since they comprise the majority of the 1%. But what we found, the issue is not so much on income as it is on net worth. And that is where the disparity really is very prevalent. African Americans in the top 1% have net income, a median net income of $1.2 million, but Caucasians have $8.3 million.
So the showcase is that much different when we talk about the net, and it is that much larger, and it's probably a lot of the likely media figures that we already know?
Definitely. When looking at the industries that a lot of the top 1%ers work in, we definitely have the financial component,
sure,
insurance, real estate, the likely culprits, so to speak. But we also have people in manufacturing, and within that major code where most of the top 1% reside, in terms of profession, you have the entertainers. So you have publishing people. They call it performing artists and spectator sports, i.e. your athletes.
So for everybody that wants to see more about this, they can read it on thegrio.com. CNBC Shartia Brantley, great to have you in today. Over 13 million Americans remain out of work currently. That struggle to find work is harder for those with criminal records, especially in the African-American community. That translates to a staggering loss of revenue. Get this, between $57 and $65 billion. Now, the good news is green jobs are helping ex-offenders get back in the workforce. Joining me now with more on this is CNBC's Street Signs host, Shartia Brantley, who reports on this story for thegrio.com. So this is pretty interesting to see how this is all translating, and green jobs are the big player here.
It may be a new path to employment. So, Thomas, we took a deeper look at a group of people who may have the toughest time finding a job in this tough labor market. Ex-offenders gather at Ando International in Queens to learn green construction skills as part of the Green Lantern Project managed by the Fortune Society. Oscar Rivera, a 50-year-old husband and father, recently enrolled in the EPA-sponsored program.
My plans for here is, once I'm certified and I have all the certificates, is to find a good paying job in the industry.
Stanley Richards, Senior Vice President of Programs at the Fortune Society, says he's seen an increase in demand for job placement services.
We've always had a line in terms of employment opportunities for formerly incarcerated men and women. What we've seen is that that line has gotten much, much longer, and formerly incarcerated men and women are at the back of that line.
In 2009, the Fortune Society assisted 754 clients with job placement services. In 2010, they helped 1,030 clients, a 37% increase, which may reflect a hidden unemployment rate. Thomas, we have at least 729,000 men and women that are released every year from prison. So we need to find a solution to getting them back to work and make them tax-paying citizens again.
Shartia, it's so interesting when we think about this being such a specific skill that's being taught. I want to show everybody. We look at the total number of men who were in prison as of 2009, the ethnic percentages. It raises questions about this hidden unemployment rate. So do we know why men who have been incarcerated are not being counted as part of the official reported unemployment percentage?
Well, right now, your criminal background is not a question that's asked during the household surveys when they look at calculating the unemployment rate. And so what happens so many times when people are released from prison, they're going back to communities that are already have been hard hit by the economy. So they're going into situations where the unemployment may be double digit already. And so they return home, have a difficult time finding employment, and so the real unemployment rate for that community could be 20% or more.
More staggering than we already know. Shartia Brantley of thegrio.com, thank you. Just want to pass along to everybody, you can check out Shartia's work and other journalists on thegrio.com for other stories about diversity and social justice in America. Shartia, great to see you. Thank you.
Ex-offenders gather at Ando International in Queens to learn green construction skills as part of the Green Lantern Project managed by the Fortune Society. Oscar Rivera, a 50-year-old husband and father, recently enrolled in the EPA-sponsored program.
My plans for here is, once I'm certified and I have all the certificates, is to find a good paying job in the industry.
Stanley Richards, Senior Vice President of Programs at the Fortune Society, says he's seen an increase in demand for job placement services.
We've always had a line in terms of employment opportunities for formerly incarcerated men and women. What we've seen is that that line has gotten much, much longer, and formerly incarcerated men and women are at the back of that line.
In 2009, the Fortune Society assisted 754 clients with job placement services. In 2010, they helped 1,030 clients, a 37% increase, which may reflect a hidden unemployment rate.
The official unemployment rate might be, 9%, 10%, or in many of the cases where these ex-offenders reside or return to, you're talking about unemployment rates that are double-digit, 15, 20%. If you were to include them into some kind of real unemployment rate, where they're underemployed or they're discouraged, that possibly raises the unemployment rate up into 25, 40% for some of these local areas.
The Center for Economic and Policy Research estimates that unemployment among ex-offenders costs the U.S. at least $57 billion in lost input annually. Are green jobs the solution to getting ex-offenders back to work? Matthew Shelton thinks so. The 28-year-old recently completed the program and is ready to put his new skills to work.
I gained understanding of the green industry and what it entails in energy auditing and building science. The Fortune Society helped me develop a resume. I have a few interviews set up.
Shelton thinks ex-offenders should be given a second chance in the workforce.
I'm ready to embark on a career path and, put my past behind me.
Andrew Plaskett is a 32-year-old veteran and father of 3. He recently completed training and is about to start an internship.
My short-term plans is to get involved in an internship that I've been accepted to. It's about 3 months long. I plan on to do that. It's to transition myself back into the workforce since it's been so long for me.
Plaskett says getting a job will have a positive impact on his family.
For my mother and father, it means I'm not going to be much of a burden on them anymore. For my kids, it just means that their father has a bright future.
Shartia, Brantley for the Grio.com.